And when you influence culture, it's not about today, it's about tomorrow.
Life, man, it's a roller coaster, but you got to stay on the ride.
You can be anything you want to be. The only person who's stopping you is you.
If you're trying to do something you never did, pause. It's going to hurt.
Life won't bring you what you need. You have to go after it.
And I'm okay knowing that it's going to cost more, it's going to take longer, and it's going to be harder than you thought. I'm okay with that.
You know, my grandmother used to always tell me, she said, remember tunnel vision.
You know, people, they feel good when you tell them that you love them.
But you know why a lot of folk really don't leave their comfort zone? The fear of failure. I'm writing this book to be your motivator for the day. I'm telling you that you can get out of that comfort zone. If you are hurting, it's a perfect time. If you are angry or upset with your current situation, then it's a perfect time to make a change. Have you ever heard of being at the right place at the right time? This is it. Start dreaming again. Start seeing yourself in that new car, that new home, or that new business. Maybe you just want to start back traveling again. Do it. Let me be the person who just nudges you right on into your destiny. I feel obligated to help. I want to help. It's my way of giving back.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it.
If you really want to leave a legacy, you got to do more. We're talking about leaving where we're comfortable at, walking on water. The reason I'm the expert and able to give you advice is because I failed the most.
Everything you want in life, I believe, is right outside your comfort zone. True enough, we can all give 100%, y'all. But can you give over 100?
I'm not talking to somebody who thinks they're real successful and they don't need it. I'm talking to somebody who's successful but wants to be more successful.
There's definitely a switch inside each and every one of us.
Yeah.
So, like, think about the walls here.
Yeah.
Even when the lights are off, there's electricity in these walls. Even during your worst moments, there is vitality ripping through your veins. There is an electrical life force within you. And life can turn that switch off, but it's still there.
What makes a lion a lion? I'm looking because if I can find out what makes a lion, I can help you turn that switch on. Because we all have it. That switch is in all of us. It's in a high school dropout. That switch is in someone who was homeless and ate out of trash. That switch exists in all of us. And I knew if I could turn the switch on, and if I could teach you how to turn that switch on.
Hey, how y'all doing tonight? Welcome to Sunday Night Live with author Eric Johnson. And I appreciate everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to tune in tonight. We'll give everybody a few seconds to get chimed in. What y'all eat today on this beautiful Sunday? How'd you enjoy time with your family? What type of meal did you have? Drop that in the comments. Today I had my mother made me and my wife an anniversary dinner. Thank you so much, Mom. Wow, it was so good. She made a roast. She steamed broccoli. She looked like she had I guess it was a twice baked potato that was hidden. And then she gave us strawberries and Cool Whip for our dessert. So thank you, Mama. Shout out to everybody that stopped by Mother's Basket today in DeSoto. We had an amazing turnout today at the restaurant. So please, if you can, if you're in the area, Thursday through Sunday, we rock and roll right in DeSoto, Texas. Y'all let me know in the comments if I'm clear, if you can hear me, because tonight I got some powerhouse speakers coming on with us, and I cannot wait to introduce them to everybody. Lorenzo Davis, I see you, baby. Y'all in here early tonight. What up? Hey, Lil Mac, I see you. What's up, family? Jalen, what's up, cuz? Big truck driver. Jay, I see you. Okay, I sound good. Y'all let me know in the comments what you had to eat. Just for the sake of time, let's go ahead and recap last week. We talked about a strong why. Talked about a strong why on last week. That's the most important chapter of the book to me. Chapter 15, defining your why. Your why has to be tied to the strings of your heart. It can't be how, what, when, and where. You know, all those things, like I said last week, are cool, sexy, but it's not inspiring. Your why is inspiring, and it should make you well up, almost cry when you talk about it, because that's what's going to keep you going on this mission to success, this mission to obtaining your dreams, obtaining your goals. We had the brother Robert Rooks, the CEO of Reform Alliance, our hometown hero, right here from DeSoto, Texas. Went to Prairie View and on up to Yukon. That brother dropped some jewels on us last week and really educated us on what's going on in the world of criminal justice reform. That brother's been around in that space over 2 decades as a grassroots organizer, strategist, movement leader. And I mean, Reform Alliance is rocking under his leadership. What are y'all reading out there? What you reading? What you reading? Y'all know I always say that leaders are readers. And my recommendations, we're going to start a little different this week. The Switch Within. Let's start right here. The reason why I did a podcast, reason why a lot of things are happening in my life the way that they are. This book opened the door. Turning on Greatness in You. I do have it available on Amazon in a paperback, ebook. Thank you. I do have the book available as a paperback and ebook, and we have it in the audiobook format for you on Amazon. Practice is the Pathway to Perfection by Greg L. Thomas. Awesome book, also available on Amazon. Y'all make sure y'all are getting these books. If you don't read, like I said before, I'm gonna say it again tonight, get the audiobook. Don't go into your satellite radio, your Pandora mix. You know, pull up Practice is the Pathway to Perfection. You know, pull up The Switch Within. Pull up The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Pull up this book in an audiobook format and just listen to it. When you take the kids to school, on your way to work, when you're just riding around, just trying to clear your head, put that audiobook on, because like I said before, we do realize that what goes in ultimately does affect what comes out. Diversity, Leaders, Not Labels. This is by the brother Stedman Graham. Leaders, hold on, let me get this right. Diversity, Leaders, Not Labels. A New Plan for the 21st Century. That's been a real interesting book. And finally, Powernomics, Dr. Claude Anderson. This is a book that I've been recommending for quite some time. This brother has a plan. A lot of times we always say, we need to do this, we need to do that. How do we do it? He has a inclusive plan for Black people to show us what we actually need to do to begin to close the wealth gap, for one, come together as 2, develop more resources for our own community. We're talking schools, hospitals, grocery stores, etc. How y'all feeling, man? I'm feeling amazing tonight. It's Sunday. This is season 1 finale. Shout out to my kinfolk down in Georgia. As always, the brother Eric Jesse, doing amazing things in the life of children. This is his Men of Distinction calendar, and that is available. Hey, y'all drop down in the chat or message me. Let me know if you like to order the book. Y'all support a good cause. This brother is down there helping children. Well, what do you mean helping children? He's getting assigned kids by the courts that are not necessarily in trouble, but maybe hadn't been making the best decisions. So Eric is grabbing those kids, loving on them, giving them a plan, showing them some things about life skills, and I am proud of him for that. Always Keep Hope Foundation, based out of Georgia. And if y'all ready, we can get ready to get right into it. Tonight, the title of the episode is There the Whole Time, based off of chapter 16 in my book. And it's kind of self-explanatory, but just for the sake of time, I'm gonna kind of get through this real fast. There the whole time just lets me re-emphasize my point of having the switch within inside you already. It's already there. It's been there the whole time. It just wasn't activated. And that's the key, guys. We got to start activating our switch. My next book should be multiple switches, because I'm starting to realize we all have multiple switches. We all jump sometimes from drive into overdrive. And if you keep going hard out here, then you might even hit turbo along the way. So it was there the whole time. This will be the education edition tonight. That's why I brought on these powerhouse educators tonight. And so I just want to kind of throw some topics out there for y'all to kind of ponder. We are going to go hard on the chat tonight with questions that you may have for these ladies that are coming on tonight. Class size, education, class size. Most teachers agree that they cannot effectively teach every student in a classroom if the class size exceeds about 30 people. Poverty. 22% of children in the U.S. live at or below the poverty level. Family factors, divorce, single parents, poverty, violence, and other issues that a student brings to school with them each day. Technology. That's a big issue in the education space that we might want to talk about tonight if we get time. Bullying, cyberbullying. It's become a major issue in schools, and that's documented by the number of suicides that can be directly traced to bullying events. No Child Left Behind has actually transformed into the ESSA or ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. And we want to maybe talk about annual standardized testing. Been a lot of uproar, a lot of kids not graduating, not getting promoted to the next grade because of standardized tests. And parent involvement. Some parents, you don't see them the entire school year until right at the end when they get that diploma or they get that little degree. Then everybody's around, granny, the auntie, everybody shows up. And that's one parent. You don't see them all year. And then you have another parent that's just hovering over the school, over the staff, the administrators, and they're interfering with the education process. Critical race theory. That's something that I was looking over during my research this week. Maybe we can get on that as well. And minority teachers. That's something that definitely needs to be addressed. Because we definitely need representation in these schools. Let's see here, y'all. And without further ado, for the sake of time, the way this is going to go tonight, I'm going to interview Jacquelyn Murphy-Braxton, who's a principal. She's been around the education field for a long, long time, worked in Dallas Independent School District for years, the Grand Prairie ISD School District as well. And she's been functioning in the capacity as a principal for a number of years as well. And currently, she's in the Richmond public school system there in Virginia. So y'all, without further ado, I bring to you my cousin, Jackie Murphy-Braxton. What's going on, kinfolk?
Well, hello, cousin. How you doing? Author Eric Johnson.
How you doing tonight, cuz? You okay?
I'm doing wonderful on this Sunday. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
I appreciate you taking out the time to jump on the podcast and just bless everybody with everything that you're going to bring. Jackie, for everybody that may not know you, let us know who you are and where you're from.
All right. Jacquelyn Murphy-Braxton from Dallas, Texas, graduate of Duncanville High School, your wonderful rival there. And from Duncanville, I went off to Texas A&M University, and then I transferred to Southern Methodist University, where I received my Bachelor of Arts. I actually have a corporate communications background with a minor in Spanish. And after that, I went on into education and received my master's from Lamar University there in Beaumont, Texas. Been here in Richmond, Virginia for 6 years. And the entire time that I've been here, I've worked in the same community as principal. And before I left, I did about 6 years of principalship in the Dallas, Lancaster, Grand Prairie area. So most of my time now in education has been spent as a building administrator. I've been a central office staff where I've worked with bilingual ESL and languages other than English, as well as I've also been teacher of the year. I was at that wonderful KB Polk Elementary for some time. Yes, and that's where I learned a lot about myself and about education there at KB Polk. And my own children went to KB Polk with me.
Wow. I think I was talking to you about KB Polk yesterday, where your brother Willie and I used to come visit you. And I mean, you were so young at that time, just had a passion for teaching and the kids. And at what point did you become the expert as a bilingual instructor, actually teaching Hispanic children English, Jackie?
Well, the interesting thing is when I interviewed for teacher, I went to a job fair, didn't even know much about education then. I had already minored in Spanish, and I had Onesimo Hernandez and KB Polk fighting for me, basically. Like, we want her. And I actually went to Onesimo Hernandez first, but with the leveling process, when you talk about classroom sizes and everything, I kind of got caught in the leveling process and ended up going to KB Polk anyway, the same year after about 6 weeks in. So once I got to KB Polk, just started, it's just like the title of this chapter there the whole time. I just had a gift and started being noticed my first year as a teacher, like just for my excellence and being able to reach students and grow students and just my test scores and everything. And after about a year, I started coaching other teachers through Dallas ISD's multi-language program. So I started being a coach early on in my career, teaching classes on Saturdays, helping teachers pass their ESL exams. So that was like from the beginning is kind of where all of my talents and skills started to pour out. I guess just always being around children and just having that natural gift. I guess it's in the DNA, my father's side of the family, my grandfather, everyone came through education, either a math teacher, English teacher. So it was there the whole time.
Been there the whole time. What is the most rewarding part about being an educator, Jack?
Oh, wow. I think the children and just, helping the children notice or recognize who they are and what their strengths are and what's inside them and what's there has been there the whole time. That's the biggest thing. Just getting, kids excited about education, kids realizing their gifts, and kids, being able to express. One of the big things I used to love to do is introduce, African drum and dance to students, and just being able to go on shows and perform at the House of Blues and travel across, the nation. And students realize, oh, I can do this. I can drum, I can dance. I even had a cheer team that I, developed out of KB Polk, changed the uniform, leveled up the type of performance, took them, to Houston, Texas to compete. So just being able to get students to understand that you can do anything you set your mind to. And I think that's where my passion lies, is just seeing students do what it is that is ingrained in them and their DNA. For example, this year, one of my students, Jeffrey, won the district-wide spelling bee. Jeffrey was practicing and studying and doing everything, and he beat the entire Richmond Public Schools in the spelling bee. So, it's just like, cheering Jeffrey on, and just my African-American males. Every year we've had an African-American male represent us in the spelling bee. And so we actually took home the victory this time. So those are just the things that really excite me in education. Just a one win at a time. We have this campaign 10 to win, and every time a student makes gains, we celebrate that, whether it's attendance, whether it's behavior, whether it's academics. We're constantly celebrating what they're doing well. And, you have to be positive. You have to support students. And, that's my passion, just watching them grow, watching them realize where they are, who they are.
Wow. That is amazing. Because you've been doing it so long, what keeps you going? After all these years, I know it's your passion, but with COVID, and I remember you were telling me that you guys are just now returning back to school. What keeps you going, Jackie?
Eric, truly, it's the children. It is the children who keep me going. It's just like, I can have a rough day, but there are going to be children looking for me. When I'm out, they realize I've been out.
Miss Murphy.
Yes, where you been? Where were you? Who is this that's here subbing for you? Like, where have you been? And it's just like, when they go looking for me, it's like, I can't let them down. It's like, I have to. I don't care if I have a headache. I don't care if I don't feel my best. It's not often that I take a day off, because they keep me going, and I think I keep them going. So it's just it's just that love that we have for one another. Like, we just go back and forth. They keep me going. I keep them going.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful thing, because to hear you say that, because I believe that the education system has changed. I believe a lot with the teachers has changed as far as competitive pay. A lot of the good teachers moving out to the suburbs, taking better paid jobs. How do you think the inner city can combat something like that, Jackie, as far as getting better teachers in those inner city schools that, aren't necessarily motivated by pay, but motivated by purpose?
Ooh. I know yesterday we talked about parent involvement a little bit. I think the number one thing is being a community. Whether you get 100% buy-in from parents or not, being a community. And I think, being in the same community for the past 6 years, and when I was with KB Polk, being in that community, just, if you are wanting to give back to your community, to me, those are the teachers who are the most successful, who I've become vested in this community. I shop here. I live around here. Students see me outside of school around here. I live 5 minutes from my school. I see parents on weekends. I see children after hours. So I am part of my community. I am truly a part of the community. My husband grew up around here, so my community has only expanded, just for this South Side, Richmond. That's a big thing, South Side and all that. So, this is my community, and the students are used to seeing me. They see me driving around. All my former students, I see them in the mall. I see them at the grocery store, and it's just like, it's always a reunion. And the thing is, the longer you're around, my students my 6th, 7th, 8th graders, I started naming family members, and they're like, oh, okay,
Right.
you are really part of this community, and that
Yeah,
really
yeah,
changes things. So I would
absolutely.
say, if you were to come back into the school system, or someone wanted to teach in the school system, be somewhere where you're going to be able to love that community, make those investments. Students and families know that you are truly invested. And that's how you kind of make it. That's truly how you make it. Like, if I was some evil person who, didn't show the love for my students and they didn't like me, I probably would have some flat tires and stuff by now.
Right.
So it's just like, this lady loves this community. They can pass by the school. Like, okay, your car is always at the school. Why are you always at the school? It's like, because I always have something to do for my babies. And, that's just kind of how I approach, the whole learning environment. My students know I call them baby, honey, sweetheart. If I don't know your name, but I probably know at least 50% of the 1,500 names at my school. And that's another part. It's like, it's relationship, it's community. And like a lot of teachers who come back and serve, Southside community, they don't have a hard time because they know, oh, this teacher knows my aunt, my uncle, my grandma, so it's all about community.
Family. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I wrote a book, of course, Jackie, called The Switch Within. And I just want to salute you publicly for being my editor. And you did an amazing job at editing that book. I wrote The Switch Within, and I asked everybody this question. If somebody was standing right on the edge of greatness, what advice could you give them about having greatness inside of them already?
Wow. This was my favorite chapter, and it was also the chapter I used, to make some personal reflections and remember some things that have happened along the way. And I think the first thing I would tell someone is I think we lost Eric, but he'll come back. Okay. The number one thing is be still. The first thing, just be still and think about, what it is you have inside you. Think about the experiences you've had and the things you've overcome in your lifetime. I think that would be the very first step, because it's there and we know it biblically, and from your book, we know it's already within us. Anything we need is already there. So you have to be still. If you're moving fast and hustling and you're not recognizing what you have inside you, you're going to miss those things. So just be still first. Know that it's inside you. And it's just like, you have to rely on any sign of that makes you feel good, in your heart. I think for me, I've never thought about leaving education, because I think about how I've made some families feel. I think about how I've made some students feel, how I've made some teachers feel, and how that makes me feel. And I was just like, education to me is a ministry. And, it's usually, if it's not working for you, and if you don't get up every day feeling like it's a new day, then it's probably not your calling. It's probably not your calling. If you can't get up and feel like, I got to give it to them again, I got to get up and give 100% every single day. My students need me. My students rely on my presence. That's one of my biggest things for teachers. Children need you here. Children need you each and every day. And it's just like, we are the constant for our children. The teachers are the constant. It's not, what's going on at home. It's like, for children in education, the school building and the teachers, that is the constant. And if it's not consistent, then we're robbing our children. But be patient and know. We all heard that before. Be patient and know that you're in the right place at the right time. I think that's when I think about there the whole time. It's just like, it's in you. You have to be patient, you know, and you have to also think in service. It's like, you know, I feel like your book was in service. What I do each day is in service. And if you're not here as a servant, whether you're a servant leader or just a servant, period, you kind of not going to get going or not be in the right place, because it's like when you're doing things that are for self, it's going to take you so much longer to realize and to have all those great things come out of you. You have to be in service. So be still and listen. Know that you have what you need, and always think about what you're doing to serve others.
Wow. You know, cuz I remember coming to see you at Lee Elementary
Lee
one time
Elementary,
in
yes.
Grand Prairie, and the
Yes.
way those kids interacted with you, and not only the kids but the staff as well. And I just want to salute you publicly, cuz, for being a phenomenal educator. Phenomenal educator. Y'all throw up the love signs in the chat for Jackie. You have been a phenomenal educator. Some people are singers, some people are lawyers, but you chose the space, or actually it chose you.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, you are in that space rocking, and I just want to thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. And like I said, I can't imagine doing anything different right now, just because I love for the children to start to recognize and know that, you know, one day they can be a teacher, one day they can be a principal. Many of my students call me auntie, just because of the relationship. And I'll tell you something I probably haven't told too many people, but when I was in between Texas A&M and SMU, I was living in Houston, right outside of 5th Ward. And somehow, I don't know, I met every child on the street, and my dad's house became the hangout. We were across the street from a crack house. Some of their parents were crackheads, but I opened up our space in our home just as a place for students, well, children, just to hang out and be, you know, out of the streets. And, you know, we play and listen to music and laugh, but just being a safe haven for children, that, you know, just was one of the things that I did. And I've always done. I used to babysit every single niece and nephew in my apartment, about 10 of them at a time. And, you know, we couldn't fit in a little Mitsubishi to go to the store. We'd walk to the store because it was 10 of us. So, you know, that's just always been, you know, my thing, just children. And I believe children should be happy and fulfilled, and, you know, and someone should just let them know that they can be anything they want to be. And that's just always been my thing. I, even through SMU, we had programs and we tutored, and I learned so much about the Hispanic culture. And that's when I really got interested in culture and different backgrounds, and how I was able to reach students from so many different backgrounds. I was not, you know, the child that came up in extreme poverty, but now I understand it so well, and understand, you know, that relationship is important. One of the most important things for students in poverty. And it has helped. It has helped close so many gaps, you know, and watching our students, you know, here in Richmond, I have students who are already, you know, graduating, and, you know, for them to come and tell me their story. Oh, I graduated, we're graduating. I'll be at graduation for Huguenot High School, George Wythe High School this year. That's where most of my students go. And I'll be right there just to celebrate, you know, the years, and, you know, just the things that we've taught them about perseverance and doing their best. You know, In this job, you're a parent, you're a counselor, you're a teacher, you're a principal, you're everything to many kids, everything.
Wow.
And it's not just the principal. Oh, here's a question. Tell us how you help change. Oh, shoot. I have a lot of those, Lorenzo. Let me think.
Can you hang tight, cuz? Because I want to make sure that we stay on schedule.
Oh, okay.
I want to put you backstage just
Okay.
for the next 20 minutes. Let me talk to Dr. Bledsoe, Candace. I can't wait for you to meet her.
Okay.
You guys are like what and what. You follow me? So I'm gonna put you backstage, cuz I'm gonna bring you back, and then I want you guys to answer some questions at that time. So remember that Lorenzo had a question, Jackie.
Okay.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna bring you right back up. Our next guest, Dr. Bledsoe. That's what I call her. What's up, Doc? She got her doctorate from the University of Southern California. She's currently a professor at Southern Methodist University. And one thing I like, kind of 2 words that I liked about Dr. Bledsoe upon my research, is that she used the word edupreneur instead of entrepreneur. That's something that needs to be talked about here in just a second. And she said that she was a social entrepreneur, making a difference in the life of so many children. I guess once Jackie gets done with them and they make it on to college, they meet Dr. Bledsoe. Without further ado, y'all, let me turn on my sound effect machine. Y'all help welcome to the platform, Dr. Candice Bledsoe. Doc, how you doing tonight?
Oh my goodness, Eric, Professor E, thank you so much for having me on tonight. Professor E, I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy, happy to have you on. Candice, for anybody that may not know you, tell us who you are and where you're from.
Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna give you the short answer because we're gonna be here all night. Okay.
Come on now. We got time.
Yeah,
Come on.
I'll give you the short answer on that, right?
Right.
So let's see here. My dad was from the Marlin, Waco area. That's where he was from, Marlin, Texas, Waco area. And my mother was from North Carolina. And they met each other in Washington, D.C. They both worked for the FBI. And they met each other there and they got married. And at that particular time, women didn't stay who were in the FBI. Once you got married, you didn't stay, you didn't, you pretty much live your career, So they moved to North Carolina, where my dad was in the State Bureau of Investigation in North Carolina. And I was born in Raleigh. So I've had the opportunity also to live in Austin, as well as they joined the military. And I lived a great deal abroad in Germany. And got a chance. One of the great things in my experience is that before I graduated from high school, I had an opportunity to visit most of the European countries, most of the countries in Europe. But I ended up graduating from a high school in Austin, Texas, named Reagan High School, because my mother my folks had to participate in the Hungarian War at that time, like the Desert Storm that was during that time, and ended up going to Baylor. Because they wanted me to be near my grandmother and have family here within the Waco area. So that's where I started.
Wow. Okay. And so what led you into the education space?
That's a great question. So for me, I think I've always really had this appreciation for education. And I can say that started with my grandmothers. And my grandmother,
Madea,
yes,
Madea. I heard your story on TED Talk about
Absolutely. It started with Madea. So I had 2 grandmothers, Madea and Grandma. And Madea was actually an educator, and she dedicated her entire life to education and just believed in the power of education. And she also believed that, what you learned in traditional schools was secondary. She believed like you were responsible as a parent for teaching your child. She was like the old school teacher where, she took pride in my handwriting. When she talked to, different ones, she would always be like, oh, this is what I'm teaching, my grandchildren right now. So it was like she really looked at it as her calling and her responsibility to teach us everything she wanted us to know. But she kind of viewed education in the traditional sense as we think about going to elementary school or going to post-secondary, just different things.
Right.
That was all extra. That wasn't something that was, you couldn't really rely on that. So as a result, she certainly would just, she would just do all things where it centered around education, and I embrace her for that, So she is the reason why I really just have this lifelong passion for education.
Wow, that is amazing. Those matriarchs in the family. I can remember my grandmother making us, learn how to write our name and, learning our timetables and, different things like that. A lot of people these days, Candace, they just send the kids, whether that's to school, college, wherever. But in our household, we're, just like you, we believe in educating here at home, getting that secondary curriculum, which is actually the primary curriculum.
Yes.
If you will. So currently you're a professor at SMU, Southern Methodist. Tell me about that step into your career path. What led you there?
Wow. You know what? I really think that once again, it was something that where I was, like you talked about things choosing you versus you choosing it. And, from a very young age, and I would say even after I graduated from Baylor, my first job out of, we said first job out of school is was actually teaching in Thailand. And I just remember, enjoying being in another culture. And I taught at Yono College there. So I was probably the only Black woman for about a 300-mile radius,
Wow.
And so it was interesting. They would see me and I would see them, And I remember the first week I called home crying to my mom, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm the only Black person for 300 miles.
Right.
And they're looking to me like, do you know Oprah or Bill Cosby? And I'm like, hey, I'm an English teacher, man. Like, hey, and it's
right.
So, but I would never forget what my mom told me. She was like, you have to be open to trying new things.
Wow.
And there was a reason, you saw an opportunity and you took that opportunity, right? And you're going to learn something there, right? And so no one knows it all. And as an educator, this is an opportunity for you to see what are some methods that work well. What are things that don't? This is a great opportunity for you. And I thought about that. And so I stayed, and I'm so glad that I did, because after about a year, when it was time for me to leave, like everyone was so supportive, like in the community. I had parties, for leading up to the goodbye. It was everybody was like, yeah. So, but certainly just, it kind of stemmed from that. And I would also say too, also seeing gaps, as we look in just in our society. We see things, right? And sometimes there's a name for something and sometimes it's not. And so as professors, as academics, and not only that, but as people in society, it's our part, I think, to kind of study those things and talk about these issues, write about them, study them, call them out, name them, do all of those things. And I found myself doing that time and time again. And I would have to say that one of my professors was like, you know what? I think that you would be a great professor. And then I kept, moving in that direction. So.
Wow, got there. So what would you say is the most rewarding thing about being an educator?
Yeah. I would certainly say that being able to cultivate and to share knowledge, creating community. And I don't know if people really think about education as community building, but certainly it is, and as your cousin was talking about earlier, people seeing her in the community, people seeing you as a part of their support, and not so much as someone who is a barrier, right? But who's someone who's standing, in your corner. And so that particular aspect of community building, I think, is so important. And I think that, as we think about community, oftentimes we don't know the influence that we'll make, right? So sometimes I'm working with doctoral students, sometimes I'm working with master's students, sometimes I'm working with other professors, and everybody comes with a preconceived notion, or their lens is impacted by a lot of things that's already preconditioned before I get there. But hopefully what I can do when they meet me is that I'm able to encourage them to use critical thinking, encourage them to use different components that will make them question in many ways the things that they've thought about. So as we think about Baldwin, he was before his time, and many people think of him as a literary great, but also think of him as a great philosopher. And we're starting to reimagine his place within academia. But in 1963, he gave a speech called A Talk to Teachers. And that talk is when he was talking to white teachers in New York, and he was telling them about the experiences of Black students and how they have to navigate in a white society. And he really just pushed forward this thing of critical thinking. Always question what is being put in front of you. And so education many times, and this is going back to Medea, sometimes it takes place in a traditional classroom, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be limited to the four walls. And hopefully, if I can get people to question everything that is put in front of them, then I've done my job.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Candace, if somebody was standing on the edge of greatness, and you had to give them that little final pep talk just to get them over the edge, what would you tell them?
What would I tell them? Oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay.
Let's say it's me. Let's say it's me. I've actually never done this, but it's me. Okay. I'm right on the edge of greatness. I'm a little timid. I'm a little afraid because this is something new, but I know I can do it. What do you tell me to get me over that edge?
Absolutely. I would say, number one, you don't have to do it alone. I think many times when we think about making these power moves, and especially as minorities, it's the thing that we have to do by ourselves. But a lot of other groups don't look at it that way. They look at it as, who can I go and consult with? Who can I call in my Rolodex to talk to about it? So number one, you have a community, right? And you don't have to go it alone. And I may not be able to support you in one particular aspect, but I can support you in some particular way. So know that your community is here for you. And it's not an individual thing. And I hate to link this back to the historical thing, but unfortunately, sometimes in our society, based in and rooted in whiteness, that is a principle that comes from white America, is this individualism. But as we think about the collective and the community, that much is rooted in the African-American experience and the experiences of minorities, is that it is a group experience. And so when I see your success, like the switch within, it's your success, but I also claim a little bit of that. I'm like, hey, that's Professor E. Hey, that's Professor E, right? Yeah. And so it is a collective. Yes, that's Professor E. That's hey, wait a minute. And so I claim a little bit of that, right? And so because I'm going to be claiming, I'm going to be pouring in, right? So know that your community is here to support you. Also, too, in the aspect of knowing that your community is here to support you, don't be afraid. And I know this is so crazy, but I would love for you to watch this documentary by it's called MLK in the Wilderness. I saw it here recently. It's on Amazon Prime, and it deals with MLK in the last 6 months of his life, and it talks about some of the hurdles that he was facing. He even had like a forced stammer in his speech at one particular time, because he was just, from the standpoint of being monitored and being, a lot of things that was going on with him, where it was really difficult for him. And it started showing up in his health. And it was to the point where they were like, well, we don't know, they were concerned about who could support him and who could help him, because he was Martin Luther King. They didn't want the FBI to, use different things against him and things of that nature. But what I learned about that documentary towards the end, his stammer goes away. And when we think of like MLK, we certainly don't think of him talking with a stammer, or we don't think about him being under immense stress or fear, or feeling like, having a debilitating type of thing. But something happens to him, And he's able now to speak fluently, and he's able to speak with eloquence. And the individuals who were around him, I think it was Andrew Johnson, who ended up being an ambassador later, but he talked to him and he was like, what happened, man? Like, you just see a couple of weeks ago, you could hardly, function. What happened, man? And so he says, you know what? I came to the realization, I had to look fear in the eye. I had to come to it and say that, you know what? I might get hurt. It's a real possibility that I might get hurt. It's a real possibility that I might die. But while I have breath in my body, I'm going to do the things that I want to do, and I'm going to do it to the fullest. Wow. And I thought, man, that was amazing. And then after that, you start seeing these speeches, where this man is just flowing and just, he is dropping, these gems. And it's because he looked fear in the eye. And I'm not saying that, I want people to be like, Dr. Bledsoe, you trying to say you want me, I don't want anybody to get hurt or, anything of that nature. Yeah. But looking at your fear, right? And sometimes it may not be that we're going to be assassinated or, the FBI is after us, but it could be a thing that we might not be successful as we think we might. Look that fear in the eye and come to a realization that I'm not going to let it stop me. And as long as I have breath in my body, I'm going to do the best in my ability to operate in my gift.
Good night. Y'all clean this place up and let's get out of here, man. Wow. Candace, I thank God for you. I thank God for Jackie. You've done so many good things in this education space. So I wanted to make this the educator's edition, Candace, just to, salute y'all and, give you guys your flowers. I got 1 million bouquets right here that I want to present you for standing tall in a space that has kind of changed over the years. What would you say is one thing that has changed in the education space that you really didn't see coming?
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. I don't think I'm like, bless her. Here you go. I'm going to throw this out because y'all know, because Medea trained me to speak up, right? So
right.
I'm go ahead and put that out there. But, academia, although it is rooted in whiteness and maleness or patriarchy, right? Like, if we look at every discipline, the canon, which we call like the theoretical frameworks or the books that support that discipline, is generally created and written by white males, right? So if you think about English, you're going to read Mark Twain. You think about it's sociology, Durkheim. If you think about education, Horace Mann, right? You're thinking about all of these disciplines, and generally most of them are rooted in whiteness and maleness, and these books have been kind of like set up as the framework of what you need to know in order to be successful, to have a career in this particular area. But even with that being said, right? As someone who went to, to predominantly white institutions and things of that nature, I always felt like the institutions were liberal enough for me to ask those questions and kind of embrace that. And I'll give a perfect example. Like I remember at USC one year, it was a concert, and I think it was like Bone Thugs and Harmony, and I was like, hey, that's cool, and I don't know if, I don't know who invited Bone Thugs and Harmony. It wasn't a lot of people that looked like it's on the campus, but I was like, hey, but I was certainly think during this time, I'm gonna throw this out here. And I was saying in academia, right? Certainly in academia, in these spaces, there's resistance. And so we've come a long way, but, think about the reactions that individuals will have. So, say, for example, if you're talking about a Baldwin, or if you're talking about, we need to reimagine the canon, right? That I talked about as all white men. Let's have Toni Morrison in English. Let's have James Baldwin.
Come on.
So if we're thinking about that, what is the reaction? And so I'm starting to see in especially Texas and in other places across the United States, I'm not going to limit it to Texas, there's a response. And so education has started to be politicized and weaponized. by people who are not student-centered. It's not about the students, but it's about this thing of, oh, I don't want to talk about critical race theory, or I don't want to talk about the history, or I recognize that it's all white men, but I don't know about adding Toni Morrison or James Baldwin to this canon, right? And so to me, it lets me know that this resistance is here, right? And so that's something that I've seen that's come up a lot more often now. And this weaponization of education. Now, it's happened before with the boarding schools and with a variety of different things. There's a book I would love for you all to read called Education as Extinction, Education as Extinction. And it's about the experiences of Native Americans in boarding schools and how they use education to kind of do different things that wasn't important, like change the whole trajectory of Native Americans, trying to take away their culture, trying to do certain things like that. And so now in my role, I'm starting to see this response to critical race theory, this response to a more inclusive curriculum. And although K through 12 educators have never been teaching critical race theory, I think that with the death of George Floyd, there was more of a we started to see with D&I more initiatives to try and bring up more conversations about diversity and inclusion and Black history and the history of minoritized people in America. And so now we're starting to see this response in academia and in K through 12, I think, to this resistance of inclusiveness, and equity.
Wow. Dr. Bledsoe, in the spirit of time, I want to merge Dr. Braxton and Jackie. That is Candace, Jackie.
Hey.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Hello.
I'm doing well. Nice to meet you. I've heard so
It's
much.
Nice to meet you. Well, absolutely.
Right. And I just want to thank both of y'all for being on. So CRT, critical race theory. Can we start there? Because a lot of people may not know where it is. Dr. Bledsoe, maybe you can take this one. What is critical race theory and how is it affecting law, legislation, and education?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I want to say too that, first of all, excuse me, critical race theory has been around for years. Professor Bell, who was in the School of Law, in the discipline of law, a law professor, he came up with this theory. And so theoretical frameworks are just that. They are designed to help individuals frame their arguments as they do research and how we have these discussions and start unpacking things. So there are things like feminist theory, there's, disability theory. And so feminist theory would talk about the rights of women. Disability theory would talk about, critical disability theory about the rights of the disabled or the experiences of the disabled. And so critical race theory really is an opportunity for us to have a legitimate conversation as it centers around race. And it provides us with that framework because there was a gap before critical race theory in academia. There really wasn't a frame where people framed their theory around the experiences of minorities and specifically the Black experience in America. And so Professor Bell, he created this theory. He's at UCLA at the time. And, and many Black scholars use critical race theory, many minority, not only Black, but people from all different, variety of different minorities. They use this theory in academia to talk about the experiences of the underrepresented. And there are 10 tenets to it, but it deals with challenging the status quo of history. That history, we know, has been really kind of archived by white males. And also that there's a counter narrative to, just like the regular narrative that you often hear about Columbus coming, and all of this, happening, the experiences of Black slaves. And so there's really more to the story that often is lost within white scholarship. And so that's what critical race theory has, those 10 particular tenets. And I don't want to go through each one because that's a whole lecture, but certainly that's what it's there for. And so in K through 12, critical race theory was never talked about from that particular aspect. But I think from the standpoint of wanting to provide a counter narrative, wanting to say that we know that, you know, if we open the history books and all we see are predominantly white people, we know that Black people, minorities have made contributions to society, and how can we be more inclusive? And so I think that is something that we're starting to see through K through 12. Not so much this concept to use critical race theory, but to use this concept of the counter narrative, right? Or being inclusive.
So Jackie, are you seeing that? Because I know you're a principal in K through 12. Are you seeing a introduction of critical race theory a little bit more prominent than previously seen?
No, being in Virginia, the lens is totally different. Right now, there are many challenges and many school districts who are actually fighting against critical race theory, eliminating it from education and curriculum. So it's a larger fight here, just because, you know, this is one of the homes of slavery, and they're doing a lot to cover it up. So, you know, that's not the case in Richmond Public Schools, but some of the surrounding districts are actually eliminating critical race theory. And Richmond has a different approach. We actually have our former teacher of the year who is working hard to recruit males, African-American males in education, and really speak up about critical race theory and make it a part of what we do each and every day. So that's a plus for Richmond Public Schools, but it's just kind of sad because Richmond is not as separated as Dallas, Texas. So, you know, I live in one of the districts who's trying to eliminate critical race theory, but I'm 5 minutes from my school. So it's like we're one community in one area. So it's hard to drive around the corner and one population is working on critical race theory and the other one is trying to eliminate critical race theory. So
wow. Okay, let's switch gears real quick. That was profound by both of y'all because wow, critical race theory. What about representation? Let's talk about minority teachers, like having that representation of Black and brown individuals that are in the classrooms. What are y'all seeing and what do y'all think needs to happen?
I'll go first, if you don't mind, Dr. Bledsoe. One of the things I like to say, representation matters. Our students are so motivated and so engaged by those who look like them, those who have similar backgrounds as they do. So it's like representation truly matters. And as you know, we grow in diversity, the biggest thing is to try to come up with a diverse staff. And sometimes it's harder than you would actually think. You would think, oh, okay, I can get, you know, the ratio to kind of match up with my population, but it's not always that easy. One season or 1 year, I might hire mostly African Americans. The next year might be, oh, I have like 10 new men on staff. And another year might be, okay, I don't have any African Americans or any males who apply for any of the positions. So, but it's so important. But we also engage in like professional development that talks about windows and mirrors. So making sure that students are able to see themselves in the curriculum. So even if it's not the teacher, making sure they're part of the curriculum, I can see myself and I can relate to what's going on in the curriculum, even if that teacher or that staff member doesn't look like me. They are directing me and leading me to things that I can make a connection with personally as it relates to like instruction and everything.
Wow. Dr. Bledsoe?
Yeah, no, I think certainly she hit the nail right on the head. And I just might add the historical context that, you know, with Brown versus Board of Education, and I'll never say that Brown versus Board of Education was a bad thing. That helped to integrate schools. Topeka, Kansas, 1954. And that's when you start having the integration of schools. And so I'll never say that it was a bad thing. It's a policy, you know, type of change. But certainly it was not because we did not have cultural wealth in our schools. We had teachers that look like us. We had school leaders that look like us, just like Miss Jackie here, who is in the community, who cares about her students, who they can see at the grocery store. Can you imagine having an entire school of teachers like that, who look like you, and school leaders who are invested, that go to church with you? And so we had that before Brown versus Board of Education. Unfortunately, we did not have the facilities. We didn't have the money, right? So we had a lot of the things that were passed down, excuse me, from the white schools, like the books and things of that particular nature. And so it was supposed to provide an opportunity for students to have access to education and to facilities, to have that access. But what ended up happening is that we had an elimination of Black teachers and Black school leaders. So every child had a place to go to, but not every teacher or every school leader. Now, don't get me wrong, some teachers did get a chance to be integrated, but not 100%. And so as a result, many of those teachers had to find other occupations. Many of those school leaders had to find other places. And Malcolm Gladwell has a wonderful podcast, Malcolm Gladwell, and he's actually interviewing one of the teachers who lost her job as a result of integration. And she talks about how devastating that was for her entire life. And so I think in many ways, we've never fully recovered. We've never fully recovered as far as having that representation in the classroom. And does it make a difference when you have someone like Miss Murphy-Braxton who's there versus, someone else who may not have the social emotional learning skills to connect with you, right? And so certainly I think that representation is important, but this is the reason why we have these particular issues. And I think that we haven't been able to fully recover. We've never been able to, and I think with the strains of COVID now, there are people who are leaving the field, and it's making it more difficult as well. So.
Wow. Jackie, you have any other thoughts on that subject?
No, I just kind of was thinking about like some of the our Teacher of the Year comments. His name is Rodney Robinson. He has a lot out there if you want to hear some of the historical things. Y'all know Virginia is rich in history, so I've learned so much since I've been here. But I was just kind of laughing about the representation matters. Yes, Eric, I have to show up to school some days in my Jordans. I have the latest 11s. So it's just like I connect on like so many levels. I don't go all the way, in school with my suits every day. I might have on some polo for the kids. It's just, you have to represent in so many ways. I color my hair for my kids, just all kind of school spirit. So it's funny that they come and check out what J's I have on that day or what I'm doing to get their attention. So it's not just like the color of my skin and not just like me living here. It's just me being a human being to some preteens and some teenagers. It's like, okay, they told me I have that drip, Eric. That's what they tell me.
I like that. So let me ask y'all this. If we had our own school and you guys could write your own curriculum, what is something that you would share with the viewers tonight that you feel may be missing in the curriculum going on today? Is that taboo? I'm sorry, Jack.
No, that's a great question. I've been thinking about this own school thing for some time now. And the switch within has me really moving in that direction. But I think the first thing is Black history is every day. That's the one that will be like the basis of the curriculum. Black history is every single day. The path that you're walking, and just because, you haven't done like the biggest, greatest thing, but you are a part of history. Like you are a part of history. I think about, each individual is the microcosm of this macrocosm. It's like you're a tiny bit, but it takes all of us. So the path that you're going and the choices you make and the things you do and how you succeed and how you go from day to day, that is part of our ever moving, ever creating history. Like every day we're creating history, because when we look back, the choices we've made, the things we've done will be really relevant to many of us and most of us, especially those that you are connected to, whether it's your family, friends. My husband is like a walking history book for this city. I can ask him who a former principal was or whatever, but it's just like he has like the tapestry of this city ingrained in his head and can tell me anything I need to know about the past 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I don't know if the people that he can tell me about realize that you have really been a part of this city's history, this state's history. He can tell me about all the coaches who came through and taught them and trained them. And it's just like, you just don't know. You know, be careful with your path because you are being written into history with every word, with every step, with every action. You know, you and every day is Black history, and students just need to know that.
Every day is Black History. Dr. Bledsoe, what's missing from today's curriculum?
Oh, wow. I certainly, I echo what my sister, Jacquelyn Murphy-Braxton mentioned. Of course, I believe that Black history is every day, and I certainly underscore that. But I also think critical thinking, that is something, being able to have children to think critically, to think about and to question, like, how do we practice that? We question. So even if Dr. Bledsoe says this is the answer, can you prove it? Can you show me that? Can you look at I could give you a glass of water. Is it pure? Do you know? Like, you need to question and use critical thinking. So certainly I think that is extremely important. The ability to write, to speak, written in oral communication. I certainly think that certainly in our communities, the church was a major part of the folks being able to have speeches and articulating and cultivating those opportunities for them to speak in community settings. And so that is invaluable. So I certainly believe that that also plays a role in the ability to write, because when you have that power to read, write, and speak, certainly, you are in control of your destiny, right? Like when you, and to think and to critically think about what's being put in front of you, you really, you are the person who has the reins and you have control. I would also include entrepreneurship. I really would love to see children with the ability to create initiatives. There's a young group that I work with called the Social Innovators and Social Entrepreneurs Group. And this is where of course, we're preparing students to go to college. And I'm proud of the fact that over a decade, I've helped 1,000 students to obtain interest into college. But this particular program was created a couple years ago because I knew that some students wouldn't go to college, and that was okay. And so as a result, they can have a business or an initiative that sets them up with the social capital and with the, the career skills that's needed for them to be successful on day one from graduating from high school. So entrepreneurship, I think, it's always played a role in the Black community and in this country. And I certainly believe that young people are the social change agents. They know, you can ask someone, like, what's the problem, right? And they'll tell you what the problem is. So really equipping them with those skills as entrepreneurs and innovators to help tackle some of the issues that are in our local community. They can do it. I certainly believe that.
Right. Absolutely. Jackie, I think we got that question. Let's see.
Yes, I was just thinking too. It's just like, sounds like she read our mission statement of River City Middle School. Critical thinking, innovation. Those are like all of the pieces to what we're doing each day at River City, and we are actually becoming a mass communications academy where. I just had to think of something. It's like, how do you get students to research and write each and every day? It's like, what? Mass communications. You can't publish, you can't speak, you can't do anything, without that research and without, being able to write. And so, look, Dr. Bledsoe.
I like that.
Yes.
Lorenzo Davis said, is there any underground recruiting for Black teachers, especially male leaders? Jackie?
I would say the work that Rodney Robinson is doing is really focusing on recruiting male teachers, African-American male teachers. Look him up, former Richmond Public Schools Teacher of the Year, National Teacher of the Year, actually, for 2021, I would say. So he is really doing a lot on that platform, Lorenzo. And you had another question asking about helping a student, a struggling student. I'll do, yes, how I've helped change a difficult child. I think I do that every day, Lorenzo, because, you know, I'll go with this latest one, the most recent one. I'm not going to give, his name's going to be K today. His name is K. So K went around school most of the time by himself, not very respectful to anyone at school. Profanity is the new thing these days. Every child is using profanity. He's cursing people out, being really defiant. And it's kind of like when I learned his name, and I use his name every day. Good morning, Kay. How you doing, Kay? How's it going, Kay? Kay started to come around. He came around me even more and more. You know, at the semester change, Kay was like, you know, I went to this teacher's class and she did this and I did that and she did this and I did that. I said, Kay, did you hear all the stuff that you did? Did you listen to all your actions? And I said, and that's her classroom. And so you have to show up and be respectful of her rules and her expectations in her classroom. Kay turned around, went back to class. I never heard anything else about that teacher, that class. He attends class. So that's just one of them. It's just like, I think the biggest thing was learning his name, using his name, helping him own up to the things that he was responsible for. And, you know, I think he was down a slippery slope. He just got in trouble recently, but the way he handled it, you know, we do random searches a lot of times, and he had something he wasn't supposed to have. His parent told him to carry it for protection. When he got up to the security, he just handed it to him and said, my mom told me to bring this. He didn't wait on him to search him, wand him, or anything. He just handed it over. That's just one example. But I have so many, because it's like, y'all, police aren't going to treat you like I treat you. So you have to always remember that school, we have a lot more love, and out on the streets, it's not the same. So that's like one of the things we like to teach Lorenzo, that, hey, it's different in here. And we see them change a lot on the inside, just with relationships and expectations.
And so, Dr. Bledsoe, you're dealing with young adults. I mean, these people are, you know, grown-ups, but I'm sure they still have some of those same challenges. How do you connect with those students in your class that may need a little more attention than others?
Absolutely. I really believe too, you know, it's so important that students believe or know that you believe in them. And that's one of the things that I try to instill in my students, that they don't see me as a barrier to their success. They don't see me as someone who's foreign or someone as an outsider, to and see me as someone who is in community with them. And many times I'll say that, you know, welcome to Dr. Bledsoe. And after you get to know me this year, I'll know you for the rest of your life. And they're like, whoa, okay, like, she's serious. Like, oh my goodness. But with some of our first gen students who do make it to the Ivory Tower, who make it to a university setting, sometimes they're prepared, and then other times they have different challenges. And the spirit is so important, you know, Eric, and that's what I love about the Switch Within, is because you're really, a major part of that is someone's spirit, right? Knowing that that spirit within them, it has to be turned on, right? They have to have that switch turned on in order for them to perform at the level that they need to. And I always try and talk to my students, and I mentioned first gen students, because if you've never had someone in your family to go to college and you're that person, there are certain struggles that you may have, right? Like just walking onto the campus. And I remember meeting a student while they came onto the campus, and they were like, oh my goodness, I can come on the campus. And I was like, yeah, you know, what are you talking about? But just this sense of belonging, like, you belong here, you know, it's that you're not, you know, you're not a foreigner, you belong here. And allowing them to understand that But if they face challenges, and they will, right? And if I'm a good professor, you shouldn't be in a situation where you're saying, oh, I'm going to sign up for this class, sleep through the semester and get an A. No, that's not going to be the experience, because when you leave, I want you to leave better than when you arrived. And I want people to say, oh, you took Dr. Bledsoe. I can tell by the way you talk. Look, I know by the way you write. Wait a minute. I know that you took Dr. Bledsoe. Wait a minute, right? And so, but in order, there's some students who come with a certain currency already, social capital already. They come with a variety of support from day one. And then there's others who they need that support. And I want all of my students to know that they can do it. And that to me has been the greatest success, seeing students perform and rise to the occasion. Even I'll tell you this story really quickly, then I'm gonna move on. I had a doctoral student who was over the age of, she was about 60 years old. And she was like, oh, Dr. Bledsoe, I don't know, if I can do this. And when she came to class, people kind of looked like, oh, is she gonna make it? Because sometimes people do that in higher education too. They kind of look at each other like, let me see, like, who is that? And it can be competitive, right? Like, I don't know, instead of it being just like about the curriculum, sometimes people make it about a lot of other things, right? And so it's my job as a professor to provide an opportunity where it's a level playing field, where everybody, when they come in, as long as they have access to the material, that they can do what they need in order to succeed. But this person who was an amazing woman and also a Black scholar, she wanted to do research on the Black community. And I think in the beginning, people looked at her because of her age and just thought, like, I don't know if she's going to be able to hang. But she, at the end of it, they were like, what'd you make on your paper? She's like, I made an A. What did you make on your paper? And they were like, quiet. Like, oh, I don't know, But she ended up passing away from COVID here maybe about 3 months ago. And she's no longer with us. But I carry that story as inspiration and as a reminder to me as a professor. When she was with us, I made sure that I believed that her time was respected. And at the end of the day, that she made contributions as well. So.
Wow, that is deep. I saw a question in the chat. What are some suggestions that non-educators can do to help students? And either one of y'all.
I have something real quick. The first thing is volunteer in schools. We can always use extra hands. You just have to, check in with the school and just be there. And another thing that just came when I saw that pop up, how often do you just greet students or children like, hi, how are you? Hope you're doing well in school. I think, students need to hear about school outside of school. Like, if you're in your church community with your nieces and nephews, ask them how's school going. What are your grades like? Students sometimes get shocked, like, oh my goodness, they want to know how I'm doing in school. And, a student who knows that someone cares about how they're doing in school, they start to pay a little more attention. So if someone outside of their parents are asking them about education and, their grades, they start to think about their grades and do a lot more self-reflection. Flipping, a child doesn't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. That's, it's just like just showing that you care. And it's like, oh, okay, I might respect you in your master's degree. I might respect you in your doctorate degree. If you just show me you care a little bit, it's not, it's not about a title and who you are, but it's just like, you care about me. And it's like, the fact that you care about me, I'm gonna do a lot better. And it's so funny, as I see my older students out in the community, the first thing they want to do is give me a report of how they're doing. I'm about to graduate. I'm in this program and I make these kind of grades. And it's just like, whoa, okay. So they know that you care. And they perform.
Listen, go ahead, cuz. I'm sorry. What was that last piece?
And I said they perform better. When the more people who care, the more they start to give it, to give.
And I want to say thanks to Tamara Hurdle for asking that question. She's one of my students. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Give it up for Tamara Hurdle representing the dream.
Representing. Listen, I wanna put the link in the chat for people to call in. If y'all would just hang around, maybe somebody has some questions. Maybe somebody wants to jump on and ask some questions. And let me post that right now. You can't do it through Facebook. You have to go to YouTube, go to the channel, The Switch Within, and you'll see that link in the comments. Or you can go to streamyard.com/XZ4 9R2IYP6, and you'll be able to join the live with us. And I just wanted to give everybody a chance to talk to y'all. It's the season 1 finale for me. So this is my Friday. You feel me? This is the 12th episode. And so I'll be off the month of March, come back in the month of April, and we'll be talking about special education, special needs, sexual abuse, mental abuse. I'll be bringing on my cousin Taylor from 4 Oak Cliff, and it's just all about the community. Once again, y'all go to streamyard.com, type in that series of letters and numbers, and y'all come up and talk to these phenomenal educators. But ladies, thank y'all so much just for the jewels that you dropped tonight. I mean, this was a amazing plethora of information. While we're waiting, I had another question, which was kind of on the line of commitment. How do you get a child to commit when they're not interested? Like for instance, let me just give you an example. Some kids are being classified as special needs, or they're being put in this little room that's labeled special needs, but those kids really just aren't interested in school. How do you get a child committed that's just really not interested?
Go ahead, Dr. Bledsoe. You want to go first?
Sure, I'll share just a little bit. I think one of the elements, I'm gonna stand on this. I know before y'all, if you don't remember anything else I talk about today is community building, right? I think before, and I think James Baldwin talks about this in a talk to teachers in 1963, the speech that he gives to white teachers. And a lot has changed since 1963, but a lot hasn't. And I'm gonna throw that out. I'm gonna stand on that point. Okay. And as we talked about the representation in classroom and how Black and brown children are viewed sometimes, Black girls are viewed, Black boys are viewed. And unfortunately, because of zero tolerance policies that took place at some particular point in time, the schools started using zero tolerance policies as a method to, it was supposed to be used for school shootings, to say that, you know what, we want to keep our schools safe. But people kind of manipulated the policy to say, well, a teacher could say, oh, I feel unsafe. Little Johnny made me feel unsafe. He stood up. Or, just whatever it was. Yeah, and so people started using that as well. So some of those elements of zero tolerance policies have been addressed because they went on to impact the school to prison pipeline. But another aspect of that, just zooming all the way out, once again, building community, I think, is so important. And if a child knows that, and it's always a difference, I believe, that if someone knows that you're there to support them versus their, feeling that you are a barrier or that you see them as a threat or, all of those particular aspects. So I think that's the first element. I think also, too, knowing that education takes place in a variety of different ways. And unfortunately, if we're dealing with teachers who are not used to thinking outside of the box. And I'll say this because I have traveled across the globe. I've been to Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, and I've researched schools and I've sat in on schools and I've, been there to witness. And it's been interesting to see some of the different aspects of what people will do to increase learning, But who says that we need to sit down and look at a chalkboard or a whiteboard for an hour or 2 hours? Can education still take place in different ways? Are there ways that we can assess people? Because unfortunately, I'm gonna throw this out there too, Black and brown children, not only, looking at the trajectory of, we talked about the experiences that they may have with white educators, as this concept with assessments, how they're being assessed. there's always, and data is great. Quantitative data, I think, is great. But there's always a story. There's always qualitative. There's always another aspect that is important to understand the story. So I think, though, to increase commitment, certainly being willing to think of being outside the box. I know for me, learning to play dominoes is how I learned my timetables. And my uncle taught me. He was like, and I was like big five, slapping them down, But that's how I learned my timetables as a little kid. And my person did was like, hey, come back here. But it worked, right? Like, and so just thinking about ways, that we can connect with students, right? So putting that as a priority.
Right. Jackie, you want to jump in there?
Yeah. So, just working with, basically 11 to 15-year-olds. I know my number one way to get students to commit is relationships. And I know I've said it quite a few times. Relationships. And something that I learned before I left Texas that I incorporated back at Lee Elementary. Okay. I would just ask for a commitment, Eric. I would have some one-on-ones with students. We'd be coaching through our data. It's like, okay, I see this is all you need for me to count you in our growth and in our winnings. Can I count on you? Y'all just don't know how just those small conversations just started to make our data go through the roof. Just to ask a child, can I count on you to put your best foot forward to make this small gain I need you to make? And another thing, I talked about 10 to win and celebrating students. That's another way I get students to commit. And the beauty of 10 to win, whether you are a second language learner, whether you are exceptional education, which we call special education, we call it exceptional education here in Virginia. But even if you're a special ed, you can show some growth. And that's all I ask you to do is show me some growth. And that's one way I get students to commit. It's just like, if I'm asking you for growth and I'm celebrating your growth, okay, they go to class, they're putting in more effort, they're celebrating themselves, they're coming to say, oh, Ms. Murphy, I made it to the 10 to win. The 10 to win is the big celebration, showing your growth. And that's how I get students to commit, just by celebrating their small accomplishments. You don't have to pass, you just have to do better than you did before. So all you're competing with is yourself. So that's just how I get students to commit.
Do you guys have any questions for me? I've actually never asked a guest that, but I kind of feel like I'm in the teacher's office or the principal's office, Do y'all have any questions for me? Just anything that you may want to ask?
I do, Eric. Professor E, please excuse me. I do. I'm so excited about the switch within. And, I know that writing and producing, anytime you produce something, that comes from a place. And so could you just talk a little bit about how you came to this point to write this amazing book? And to even be in a mindset, right? Because I think it takes a certain mindset. I want to just give a hats off to you for celebrating your cousin and myself. It takes a certain mindset to do that. And I'm just honored to be in community with you. But certainly, how did you get to this point where you wrote this book, and created this major podcast? Yes.
Great question. I had been thinking of writing a book for 10 years prior to when I actually wrote the book. And so I had been talking about it, procrastinating, putting it on the back of the shelf. I just found, believe it or not, some of my writings from 10 years ago, whole different title, whole different everything. But I knew I wanted to share something that I figured out along the way, which was, there's a difference between thinking and acting. And a lot of people get in their own head and they get stuck. So that was me. I had all these plans. I had all these charts and everything was highlighted about what I was going to do, but I wasn't doing it. So we took a break from the restaurant last Christmas, actually Christmas before last. And I said, if I can just do the outline, then maybe I can get this thing going. So I'm a writer. I love to write. Got in there. Next thing you know, I had 30,000 words. Shot it over to Jackie, and thank you again, cuz, for polishing that up for me, and just printed it. And then got into being serious about being a servant leader. Someone that I can leave the footprint in the sand, if you will. Hold on just a second. For my kids, when I'm dead and gone, hopefully this book will still be around, and some of Dad's philosophies are actually in stone now. So great question, Candice. What about you, Jack? Anything?
I think I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So, because I know with each and every podcast and each group, I know you are just like thinking exponentially on just like next projects and future things. What do you think is up next?
It being in the community. I think I told both of y'all this, where I wrote a book for one person, and that's kind of being figurative, but in my mind, I knew that I wanted somebody to pick the book up. Maybe they were on the edge of greatness, and my book would push them over the edge, on into greatness, out of that comfort zone. Now, by doing the podcast, I'm starting to realize the need as a collective in the community. So I would definitely love to jump right. Actually, I'm going to start jumping right in the community, dealing with issues like education, issues like financial literacy, learning how to try to close that wealth gap, because we never may be able to, but we sure can try. So to answer your question, cuz, being in the community a lot more.
Okay. And so then with the three of us on, we need to do the Switch Within Educators Edition.
Come on now.
Educators
Forward
Edition
by Dr. Candice Bledsoe and Jacquelyn Murphy-Braxton.
Yes. Educators Edition. Yes.
Absolutely.
And someone asked about pay. Lorenzo, I don't feel like I'm discriminated against pay. Everything is like on a scale basis. We have like principal 1, principal 2, principal 3. I'm principal 3 based on the size of my school. And it's also based on years of experience. So it's really formulated, and it's not based on sex.
Right. Well, for the sake of time, I just want to thank y'all so much. Y'all know I'm country. I don't know nothing to do but just to thank y'all so much, because education means a lot to me. My kids can do all kind of things, but they'll all tell you that Dad was kind of a stickler about education, because I believe what goes in ultimately does affect what comes out. So I just want to thank y'all so much for coming on, sharing with the world, sharing with these viewers a little bit about the education space.
Well, thank you. It's been great. Between we're raised by the same blood, so your father, Uncle Carl, just had a huge influence on me. I think between your mom and your dad, and my mom, I felt like that push and that love, just my entire life. And sometimes when you think about what's your why and what's your purpose, and with so many people pushing you and cheering you on, beyond just the children, I just think about my family and them being like my biggest why. Just the Bensons, the Johnsons, the Murphys. It's just like education has always been number one. Always.
Education overload. Wow.
Yeah.
Candice, do you have any last words?
Just want to say, Professor E, this is just the beginning. And thank you so much for having me on. I feel honored to be in these spaces. Certainly, I give thanks and gratitude to Medea and Grandma for helping to get me ready for these spaces. So, and the ability to tell the truth. And I just leave your viewing audience, your listening audience with it is so important that we speak up, during this time, and that we.
I don't mean to cut you off, Candice, but don't you have something coming up soon? If you'd like to make that announcement, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. On March the 12th, I will be giving a lecture at the African American Museum of Art in Dallas. And so I want to invite everyone to come out to the African American Museum of Art, Dallas at Fair Park on March the 12th. I'm looking forward to lecturing. I'll be doing the Mabel White lecture. But I have to just tell you though, even though I'm doing the Mabel White lecture, this has been my highlight of the season. So last year I received the United Nations Leadership Award, and this year the Switch Within. The Switch Within. This is my
Switch Within now. Come on.
Absolutely. Because certainly it's so important that we're reminded of our spirit. And I think I want to thank you, Professor E, for giving us a great reminder about how important it is to make sure that our spirit is turned on.
Well, good night to both of you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules again. And let's do this again soon.
All right. Looking forward to it. Yes.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, y'all, another amazing show. Sunday Night Live with author Eric Johnson. If anyone has any questions, if you'd like to jump on the live, let me see if I can post this link one more time. Let's see here. Go to StreamYard.com and type in these series of numbers and letters. They are StreamYard.com/XZ492, 9R2IYP6. If you'd like to jump on the live, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I got time tonight, y'all. This is the end of season 1. What an amazing season this has been. We had Builder Chris Keith. We've had Royce West, Anthony Stewart, Corey Turner, Shantae Odom. Man, I mean, we've had an all-star cast. Robert Rooks, the brother, humanitarian Lorenzo Gray. Shout out, Brother Gray. We have had so many champions come on this podcast. Y'all, I didn't know what I was doing, but I thank God that I did it. If anyone has any questions, drop them in the comments. If anybody would like to join the live, just want to give you guys the opportunity to do so, then feel free. You have to go through YouTube. Actually, you can go through YouTube, type in the Switch Within, look in the comments of this live there the whole time, and you can click the link there. Or you can go to StreamYard.com, type in those letters and numbers and come up. And I'm gonna give y'all a few minutes tonight, y'all. We'll be picking back up April the 3rd. Sunday, April the 3rd will be the beginning of season 2. I got a bunch of good stuff for you guys next season. Like I said, we're gonna start talking a little bit more community issues that are affecting us in the Black community. Issues like abuse, issues like molestation, issues like special needs, children. So many issues that plague our community, closing that wealth gap that I was talking about. People say that it's unattainable. I don't think so. But we're definitely going to need more than 40 acres and a mule. Shout out to everybody in the chat that came up. Facebook, what y'all doing over here, man? Everybody showing love. Aisha Hamilton, what's up, cuz? I love you. Jazz, Rodney Hines, Courtney Hamilton, and that was Jazzy Coy. Courtney Hamilton, Pooh, I see you. My cousin Dana, Paul Chappelle, Walder, I see you, baby. Baldy said, I'm currently writing a study on finding God in your wilderness moment. Wow. That's deep. Nikki, I see you. You and P. Diddy. Slim, happy birthday one more time. Let's see here. Black Man Rising, I see you back again. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. How you feeling, Mr. Johnson?
I'm feeling good, brother. I'm feeling real good. That was an amazing show for me and everybody involved.
Yeah.
Give me some of your takeaways from the show tonight.
Well, in one area for sure, what I got was confirmation, because I forgot how it came up, but something about volunteering in the schools, and that's my forte right there. I mean, I'm just so looking forward to being in front of those children again, because I think I do pretty good however I deal with them, but it's something about the aura that me and those children have with each other. Just like Jacquelyn Murphy mentioned about the relationship with those children. It's like children, and I'm not comparing humans to animals, but it seems like children and pets, it's like they can feel your spirit. You see, because we all have energy, and it's either positive energy or negative energy. It's there. And those beings seem like they can feel what you are. You see what I'm saying? Just like sometimes we even get gut feeling sometimes. And then I follow my gut. That's what I do. And then I follow it.
Right.
So I do.
You know
but
what? That's definitely true. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you go ahead if you have something to say, because I
I was just gonna say that these kids, they can sense it, just like you're saying. Kids know when you care, and they know when you don't care.
Absolutely.
My kids went through the DeSoto Independent School District, not to shade DeSoto, but there has been some teachers that have said out of their own mouth, I'm just here to get a check.
Wow.
I'm just here to get a paycheck. And my kids are coming home saying, well, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so said, I'm just trying to get my check. And
that's bold.
Startling,
that's bold.
to me. Bold. And so, like I said, if you show them you care, then you can get more out of them. Kind of like you said, Jackie, if you ask for the commitment, I never even thought of that. Just ask for it. These kids would love to partner with you to help move the needle on something, to feel included on something great. You follow me?
Yeah, but see, what's so great about that, you're getting them to do what's best for them. You see, that's what's so great about it. It's just that that's what we want to do. So when they go there, we're happy about it, but it's better for their future. You see? And so that's the great part of the great thing. Just like I had mentioned in your podcast situation. Like, I'm from Philadelphia, but I've been in Texas since 1980, right? North Philly, straight out the ghetto. But I noticed back on my era, even when I was growing up, the black educators, politicians, and everything else saw the need for us needing special attention. And I'm saying, they have all these titles, what they call at extinction, some of the terms they put on us are at risk. They got these different titles that they put. So I come from that neighborhood, right? But I noticed, especially the teachers, and I think it's maybe coincidentally, maybe not, it would be primarily the black female teachers too, that they had plans and ideas, and they exposed us to things that everybody wasn't being exposed to. Perfect example, it was 4 black women. And the elementary school I went to, it started out 1 through 6. But I believe these black women saw that these babies not really ready for junior high. And up north, they have elementary, junior high, and high. And, junior high will be like 7th, 8th, and 9th. So what they did, they held us back at the school, but they went at the end of a hallway and had 4 classrooms. And one teacher was the math teacher, the science teacher, English, and social studies teacher. And they got us prepared so where when we did go to junior high, See, it's a little easier going in the 8th grade than the 7th. You know what I'm talking about? That part when you're the smallest and the youngest group, how that happens in those schools, especially in ghetto areas. You know how that can go. But one thing I noticed, though, it looked like they utilized resources to try to help us more than what I see happening now. Now, I don't know if it's all geographical or not, or if it's a certain era or not. But like, okay, I've been volunteering in Dallas schools. I started in West Dallas Projects. Okay, they were teaching these children how to read through what they call word memorization. Okay, so how are you going to learn how to read through that if you can't read? So that means they was trying to help them fail. That's in my mind. Then you know about probably the social promotion. You're a certain age, we can't leave him back because he's too old. Well, if he couldn't do the work in the 5th, how are you going to do it in the 6th? You see? And then they weren't talking a lot about that school to prison pipeline, but it was happening. But I did learn this back then. They studied the failure rate of 3rd graders to determine how many prisons to build. So what did that tell you? I think it tells us all the same thing. So we have to do something. Now, I noticed this, though, too, in the schools. From elementary all the way through high school, every grade level, every school, every week, the same day, same time, we had an assembly program. And that assembly program was utilized for various things. It could be where you need to get a point across to the whole school. Sometimes they would even just bring in entertainers just for the students, for them to have a happy day. But it seemed like now everything is about TAR, task, whatever test, and budget. So it means whatever the children need that's outside of that, they just won't get it. And that's not right. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. Ladies, do y'all have anything to add to that? I mean, boy, you said a mouthful, Brother Gray.
Well, I get passionate with them babies, boy.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Oh, man.
It's all good. Ladies, y'all have anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, Lorenzo, you know, I know we're dealing with a lot of the politics of education. And one thing it's going to take is just like individuals who want to volunteer and leaders who know that they kind of have to think outside of the box in order to reach children. You know, I don't even try to fight the politics. I just go in and try to offer whatever I can from my own vein and my own innovation and train of thought to make sure that my students have what they need.
Yeah, but it's probably hard to fight the politics when you're part of the politics, right? So that you have to leave that to us. But I'm talking about, I've seen various changes, like a perfect example over at W.W. Bush, but that's where you mentioned them the other day. I just smiled. That was the last school I put in several years in.
Yeah.
Okay, when it started out, because like I'm a giver. And you know, poor children, they can get some money that's great for them for whatever reason. I mean, anyway, so it started out, we give them money. And then the school system starts saying, you can't loan the money. I'm like, well, we're not loaning, we're giving, you see. And then ultimately it ended up being, you can't give them nothing. And that's, I mean, why is that? Because that was a motivator, you see. And we were bringing speakers, local politicians, and whoever else. And it seemed like it was making a difference. It looked like when you start doing something helping the children, that's when they put a stop to it. I mean, we're not getting into all the social issues of this society, but you know what a lot of it is linked to. And I'm going to just save my talk for when it's my talk, and I'm going to let y'all do the education.
Yeah, I think Dr. Bledsoe said it earlier. It's that a lot of, you know, books that we're coming from are written by white males. So, you know, these kids need to learn their history. The things that I knew when I was a kid, my kids don't know anymore. I'm the one that has to tell them, you know, who certain people that are Black and great and phenomenal are.
But you didn't get that in public school, though, did you? Yourself?
No, sir. No, sir.
And just like, why would you take cursive writing out of the schools so that now they don't even know what a signature is if you don't use cursive writing? So it's been a target, and we always have, and we always will. So we just got to fight the power that be. That's what that is.
Absolutely,
yeah. And one thing about it, let me say this,
Black
and then
man.
I'm gonna go. And one thing about it, whatever our major plan is to fight the power, we can't talk about that on social media.
All right.
But y'all have a great evening. Thanks, God. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Thank you
the
so much,
opportunity,
Black man. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Look, Eric, they can always
Brother
give
Dre
us
has some stuff going. You hear me?
yes. Look,
Yeah.
tell them, impart that knowledge and give them some love. Those are two things you can't repo.
Yeah. Well, you know, Brother Dre was in the Dallas Independent School District as a volunteer over 32 years. So when he say he's passionate about the kids, he really is. And he, you know, invited me, a lot of brothers that I knew, to go in and just love on those kids. You know, those kids are getting a lot of criticism at home, getting hollered at, yelled at. They getting enough of that. They need love. You know, these kids really need love.
And I cannot highlight, you know, once again, Professor E, you talked about, and Lorenzo as well, talked about just the importance for to have someone to believe in you. You know, it's so important to have someone to believe in you. And I think that, you know, I've even seen, you know, rich kids that come from Highland Park, who've been given everything, but if they don't have almost a sense of belonging or someone, as I mentioned, who believes in them, that also impacts them as well, you know? And so I just believe that our community is so strong, and there's so many, you know, I just love being Black, but I certainly love the fact that I just love being Black. But certainly it just taught us so much as it relates to innovation, you know, and going to Hong Kong and being in schools where they could do math and science and all these great equations, but it's like, okay, I'm giving you 3 straws and a paper and a pen, make something for me. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know, like what it is.
Right.
But just seeing that innovation that we've been able to use and that resiliency in our communities, I think that is certainly an attribute and a strong suit for us.
Right. Seems like we done started the show back up, right? Because I actually got one more question. Where do y'all see the education system in the next 5 years? Will textbooks be a thing of the past? Will cyberbullying and all that kind of, you know, stuff, is that going to be just at an all-time high? I mean, give me y'all's forecast for the education space in the next 5 years.
Look, Eric, I wish someone would have asked us 5 years ago. That way we would have been a little more prepared for this time right now. Because it's like, woo, they hit us hard with the technology and everything. Currently, our entire district is 1-to-1. And I feel like we were late bloomers, but every child has a device. So the more you see students with a device, the fewer textbooks you see. You don't see a lot of textbooks around our campus. We have a health textbook because, you know, most of the time the coaches are kind of old school, so they are still using that textbook for health. And then we have some workbooks for math, and but most of our curriculum is online. Most of the assignments are online. So if a student is absent, we're still looking for work. They're suspended, we're still looking for work. So it's just like there's always communication between the teacher and the student. You know, they can go and find all of their work. And, you know, the more technology savvy a teacher is, the more there's, you know, a student can do on their devices. So in 5 years, I think it'll be pretty much obsolete. You know, we've gone to Desmos and a few other things. Desmos is like an online calculator that kind of is taken away from critical thinking, in my opinion. But I think in 5 years, textbooks obsolete. And then what was your other one? 5 years.
Textbooks, and no, just being digital. I remember being in your class 10 years ago, and you guys had kind of like a whole wall, like an iPad. Or am I getting that wrong? Because remember, it was almost like the whole classroom was digital. And this was probably 10 years ago.
Right. And so
iPads.
now Yeah. So now, with every student being one-to-one and being in a brand new building, our building, we were the first group in our building. So this is year one, but every classroom has the touch screen, you're clicking and dragging and everything, very high tech. But I feel like the students wouldn't even know any other way to respond with the way cell phones and technology is taking off. I just feel like we're right on time with that because it's hard competing with technology without technology. You need technology to compete.
And Candace, what do you think? I mean, what do you feel in the next 5 years looks like?
I really feel that the face of higher education is changing. Right now, during this time, during the global pandemic, it magnified different inequities through K through 12. So if there were problems that were there, it just magnified, brought a whole new level, from food insecurity and, technology issues to homeless children and students, right? All that was magnified during this particular pandemic. And I think some of the issues with higher education, that was also magnified. And so I think that we're going to start moving more to a skills-based type of emphasis that's going to be put on skills. And so instead of someone enrolling in a 4-year degree, maybe it is, being able to enroll in a certain class to get a certain skill, you're going to see more of that, I think, taking place.
Wow. And one more thing, and I'm going to let y'all go. School kind of teaches you how to run a business, but it doesn't necessarily teach you how to own a business. Y'all give me some thoughts on that, and I'm going to let y'all go. I know it's getting late, but that's just something that I always thought of personally. Like, I didn't learn this in college. I didn't learn this in school, what I'm doing currently, which is being an entrepreneur. What do y'all think about that?
I think that certainly schools should continue to teach. I think entrepreneurship is extremely important, as I mentioned earlier. But I also think too, I don't know how to quote unquote characterize it as the grit or the hustle that a lot of people have when they start this business, right? So you're starting a business, but a lot of external factors kind of push you where you're trying to make a certain amount of revenue, And so I think that sometimes creating those incentives to allow students to create, these opportunities for entrepreneurship and creating their own business, I think it's certainly there. But I also think that there are students that are doing it. And so there was one young gentleman who was cutting hair in a bathroom. He was a young Black boy. He was cutting hair in a bathroom, a restroom at school, and he got in trouble for it. They were like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "Well, I want to help my student, my friends out," and they were also paying him, And people heard about it, and they were like, "Wait a minute! Don't reprimand this young man. Support him." And he was a good barber. I was like, "Whoa!" So absolutely creating opportunities to foster that. And I think there's things that are going on now where students are doing that, but oftentimes that's seen as extracurricular, right? So we have this focus on the core for our curriculum, where your math, your science, English, and things of that nature. But sometimes I think even reimagining the core, to your point, Eric, and I think entrepreneurship is a way to do that, where you can infuse certain important skills that people need to know, right? And just being able to see that has been so, to me, as someone who is working with young innovators and entrepreneurs, and many times it's life-changing for them because they may not have the money to go to college. But if they have a business and they can get it up running, I'm thinking of one young lady who does makeup, someone else who's in culinary, and another gentleman as well who's in real estate. And so all of these are young people, and it's just amazing to see that they can make a living, a living salary, a living wage, and oftentimes do a lot better than some college graduates, people who have graduated with multiple degrees, right?
Jackie, what you think about that?
Well, I just have to give a shout out to Richmond, Virginia, for some of the changes in curriculum. We do have a Make It Your Business course that students take. that's part of our career in technology. And, you know, career in technology classes start in middle school. You work your way all the way through high school. And I remember about 3 or 4 years ago, my students were showing me some of the businesses they came up with and the products they came up with. So it is really, truly part of our curriculum now. So I actually have a student who has a lemonade brand. It's called Breezy Lemonade. And he leaves school every day and goes to his kitchen and makes his lemonade every single day. And I think it has, you know, mom set up as his manager and she's doing very well. So I think it is just becoming, you know, part of our system. And, you know, entrepreneurship is really large in Virginia, just seeing the number of parents who come in that have their own businesses and just community businesses around. It's like, well, everybody here has a business. It's what it feels like. So I am excited that our students are, you know, thinking about designing clothing lines and, you know, starting different businesses. So it's so funny just to see their excitement for their creation. So I just can't wait to see, you know, who's next. You know, I also have a great relationship with the anti-bullying rapper. You know, she comes to the school, she raps, she has an anti-bullying campaign. So a lot of the parents and a lot of the community encourage our students to, you know, live their dreams and, you know, do those things that are on their hearts and minds. So,
wow.
Can't see.
Wow. Hey, listen, y'all, I know y'all got to get ready and get y'all's, you know, week prepared and, you know, get everything lined up. Thank y'all again. Thank y'all so much. Dr. Candice Bledsoe, Dr. Jacquelyn Braxton. Thank y'all so much. And like I said, we're going to have to definitely do this again soon.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's nice meeting you, Dr. Bledsoe. I'll be following.
Yes, if you're here on March the 12th, come on down. Absolutely, to the African American Museum of Art, Fair Park.
African American Museum of Arts, March the 12th. And you'll be speaking on, you said Mabel White?
Mabel White is the name of the lecture. And so I'll be speaking about the experience of Black women during the South.
Wow, so that's big. Y'all make sure y'all check that out. Thank y'all, ladies, one more time. I definitely appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Good night. Good night. All right, everybody. That's going to bring us to an end of season 1. And I just want to thank God for permission to be able to do this, to actually try to make a difference, try to actually help somebody in life. What are you doing out there to help somebody? What are you doing? If you're not helping anybody, start, please, because whatever you sow, then you'll definitely reap. April the 3rd, y'all, I'll be back. Spread the word. If you know anybody that's been tapping into the show, they may have missed tonight. Check it out on the playback. Please like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. That just helps to control the algorithm, put us a little closer toward the top. So like, share, and subscribe the channel on YouTube, The Switch Within. And until next season, y'all, be blessed.